Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your dog life journey.
Okay, that's a big question.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try to just give you the basics. So, my name's Chad Dustin Mayo. I live north of Seattle, Washington, just to put things into perspective that for people that don't know the area. And the dog thing started when I was about 16 years old. My dad came home with a stray Rottweiler, but a nice one. This was an attractive dog, and he was awesome. I really connected with that dog really fast, and it became a problem because he had a lot of prey drive, and he wanted to kill the horses, and it was an issue, you know. So my mother said, well, we're going to have to find a better place for him. And so we did. And at that point, I was just a kid that was missing the dog, right? Mm-hmm. And so I thought about it, and then I talked to my parents, and I said, well, if I'm willing to pay for it, can I go out and buy my own puppy, whatever I want, whatever kind of breed I want? Mm-hmm. And so they agreed to that. And so I didn't know what I wanted, though. I didn't know if I wanted another Rottweiler. And so this would have been 96, I think. And if you wanted to research anything, you just went to the library.
Right.
So that's where I went, you know. I went to the library, and I found a little encyclopedia on different dog breeds from all over the world, you know. Mm-hmm. And I just went through the whole thing page by page. And I ran across a Neapolitan Mastiff, which I'd never seen anything like that before. And for the record, the particular dog in the picture was a terrible representation of the breed. I mean, yeah. Really bad, but it was still a cool-looking dog, you know, by canine standards. Mm-hmm. It's different, you know.
Right.
And so that's what I wanted. And so I worked all summer. I saved up all this money, and then half the battle was just finding somebody that had one. That wasn't easy to do at that time. And I remember I'd buy like Dog World magazine and look at ads in there, and I was trying to find someone local mm-hmm. that had puppies, which I couldn't find anybody for months. And then one day I was looking through a little nickel ad. You know, it was a little paper advertisement thing that they would have in front of restaurants and things like that. And I would always go through the puppy ads. And I finally found someone that had some Neo pups for sale. And so I bought my first dog from a local lady that just had a Neo bitch. She had a few puppies, and I spent $1,000 on my first puppy as a kid. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I worked my tail off for it. And I loved that puppy. I named her Tyra because I was a big Tyra Banks fan. I was really into that lady, you know. Yeah. And so I named it. It was a little black brindle puppy. And it's terrible. But when she was like 5-6 months old, she died of pneumonia. Oh. Terrible. So there I am, right? I'm just at a loss. And I ended up getting hold of the breeder. I just told her what happened. I didn't expect her to do anything for me. You know, I just letting her know the story. And she actually offered to give me another puppy. And what was interesting was I've always been an artistic person. I've always had a really critical eye. Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of artwork for different breeders around the world. I've done some sculpture now. I've done some pretty cool stuff over the years. But even as a kid, I had that going on, and I thought to myself, well, I might be able to get a better puppy. That's how I thought. Mm-hmm. Even as a kid, I didn't just want a puppy. I wanted a better puppy. So then I thought, well, I talked to the lady, and I said, who owns the sire of the puppies? And so she turned me on to them, who were also local people. And I ended up meeting them, and I saw really fast that they had better dogs. I mean, it was obvious, you know, right away. I could see a difference in they were just better representations of the breed. And so Joe and Lisa Centropini was their names. I became real good friends with them, and we became close over the years. And they showed dogs, and that's how I kind of got into the show world lightly when I was younger, because I almost had to, because they weren't willing to sell me a dog unless I was going to do something with it that way.
Right.
So I kind of got into all that by osmosis.
Would be a good time to mention Bob Clayton. Bob Clayton was actually Lisa's father. So Joe and Lisa, they were the first ones I saw some nice Neos with. I ended up meeting her father afterwards, Bob, who's this guy that I'm telling you about. And he actually gave me a couple Neos back in the early days.
And but I was never, I got married pretty young, and I was never really able to go full-fledged with the dogs, because my wife at the time wasn't really all about that. And we ended up getting divorced, and it was just a country song, took the house, took my dogs too. She didn't even like them. It was really a bad deal, And my buddy Joe's here. He helps me out a lot with the dog. Well, he'll probably chime in at some point here.
Yeah.
But he, excuse me. So takes the dogs, takes the house, all that stuff. And I didn't have anywhere to take the dogs anyway, because I didn't have a place for them anymore,
Mm-hmm.
So it all kind of materializes in a really weird way. Then I end up in another relationship with this girl that I just loved to death, but she was allergic to dogs. Mm. And so there went another 4 years, right?
Right.
And so then we finally break up in a smooth way. And then I'm kind of sitting there. I'm 34 years old at the time, and I'm sitting there going, I can finally actually do something now, with the dogs. I ended up moving back into one of my original properties, and just a house and a little neighborhood, but it had a yard and everything. I had a situation where I could go pick up a dog again, and it had been years since I even had a dog. So I ended up buying a little American bully puppy from Robert Lee. Nice little puppy, little pocket bully. Mm-hmm. And I chose that because I didn't think I was in a position to get into the Neapolitans again, because I just wasn't ready for this. A lot of dog, mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I'll grab one of these bullies. They look pretty cool. They're tough looking, and they're little to me. Mm-hmm. To me, they're little, but I like them. So I bought that little dog, and I ended up going to a couple ABKC shows, and I end up a couple states away. I end up in Idaho at this ABKC show, and I run into this couple there, Keegan and Belinda, and they liked that little puppy that I had, and we got to talking, and come to find out they didn't live that far away. They just lived in Lake Stevens, like 20 minutes away from me, mm-hmm. which was interesting because we met, a couple states away.
Right.
And they said, we got this bitch, this little 6-month-old bitch that you might like. And so I went over there, and I did like her. And a buddy of mine, Sean Brown, and we bought the bitch together. And I don't know why Keegan sold me that bitch. We're like best friends now, me and Keegan. But he screwed up on that one. And he knows it.
Yeah.
Because that bitch went on to win like 4 or 5 best in shows, and
wow.
And we didn't even show her that much, and she was ranked like number 6 in the country for a minute. It was really, she had a really good run, and so that got me full-fledged going again. I was showing dogs and having some success, and I did a couple breedings with the bullies and bred some really beautiful animals. Chairman of the board, he's in the UK now. He's a gorgeous, really well put together bully, more of a classic type, but just hard to beat when it comes to the structure part of things. Mm-hmm. And went from there, and I ended up me and Sean Brown went in together again and got some dogs from Donald, what's his last name? Holmes. Donald Holmes. Prince of Purple Rain was his name. Beautiful. A lot of muscle. Built real well. And I think I just got kind of lucky a little bit here and there. In that breed, it's hard to get a dog that's built well and still bully at the same time. And I just got fortunate, you know, ran into the right stuff at the right time, made some good decisions. And so I was on a roll, and as a little bit of time went on, me and Joe, my friend Joe, say hello.
Hello, Joe.
Hello. How are you doing, Joe?
Hey, what's going on there?
Joe's a good friend of mine, and he's a dog man. He used to be heavily involved in the United States Neapolitan Mastiff Club. Been around a long time. And we were talking, having a private conversation.
Nope.
I was sober, he was drunk. That's how it goes. But he gets to talking, right? And that's when I had revealed to Joe in a personal conversation about my breed concept of the Mollosso Presa Mayo. And at that time, there was no name to it. It was just an idea. I sent him a little drawing that I made. I just kind of drafted out this little drawing. And I'd actually been thinking about it since I was 24, 25.
What's the coolest dog? What would that look like? Your dream dog? What was the conversation?
Yeah, that was the conversation. Yeah, what's the cool? And so I show him, this is what I would want. And and I'd never showed that to anybody before. I think I had a conversation or two about it with Joe and Lisa Cinciopini when I was younger, and it was just a very casual conversation. But Joe was drunk enough to take the conversation further. You know, and he was ready to talk, right?
Right.
And so I sent him a little picture that I drew. I said, this is kind of what I'm thinking, and it's just an idea. I was kind of hesitant about it, to be honest, but he wasn't, you know.
Oh.
And he said, dude, he was like, this is cool, and it actually makes sense. He goes, this is a really impressive looking animal, and he goes, and the way that you have the head there, it's got room for its teeth, you know, looks like it can breathe. There's no hope I don't say that, brachycephalic, brachycephalic, brachymorphic impediment, none of that. And he just liked the idea, you know. So we started having a lot of conversations about it. And you look like you want to say something, Joe. Did you want to say something?
No, keep going.
Okay. He'll chime in here. Yeah. And so some time goes by, and I'm not a real computer savvy person. I don't really love technology, but I ended up downloading a couple photo editing apps on my phone, and they were pretty complicated. It was like a $20 app, you know, and I ended up learning how to use it. I just figured it out, and I'm an artist, so I was able to make some pretty cool photoshopped images, right? And I've made a lot of them over a period of time. And I showed Joe some of the first ones, and he said, yeah, you got to throw that on Facebook. Yep. And we were just screwing around, to be honest. You know, it wasn't like there was no plan there. It was just like, yeah, just throw it up there, whatever. And so I did, and it got real crazy real quick. You know, it wasn't the plan. It just got nuts. I mean, somebody shared it to a group, and by the end of the night, there was 6,000 shares or something like that. It was just insane.
And in that process, we kept trying to come up with names, and we talked about a bunch of names.
That's true, and I did not come up with the name. Joe came up with the name. You might as well tell them what it means.
Okay, well, it's basically... I'm looking at this, what they call in Naples, the old dogs, Presa. And another name for these types of dogs, the blood of these types of dogs from all around the world, they're Molossoids. It's a Molossian. So I kind of added the two because it's the same. It's kind of similar to the same dog. And then I said, well, what makes it individualized to the vision? So of course, Chad has just a very easy name to just, it flows so beautifully. So the phonetics, Mollosso, the Presa de Mayo, just fit. It made sense to me. Mollosso, Presa Mayo's, it's got a nice ring to it.
Right.
And that's what we decided. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. And so, people usually just call it a Presa Mayo for short, right? Or so it just materialized the way that we thought it would. And but interestingly enough, I did not come up with the name. That was purely Joe over here. Yeah. I just came up with the concept. So, anyways, it gets crazy. There's all these shares. I'm getting messages and friend requests. I went from like 500 friends to 5,000 in like 24 hours or something. It was a lot, and so at that point I was in trouble. You better move forward.
Right.
It wasn't really. It was. I was like, I'm just kind of looking up in the sky, going. I guess I better not just think about this anymore.
And throughout the entire conversation, we were discussing on how to create the dog. Like the whole time, we were discussing
how to do it. Yeah.
Dog, like the bloodlines, particular traits of particular dogs and bloodlines and breeds, in order to accomplish this feat. And we all knew we knew this is a period of years to perfect it. But it's the art of it, the love of the dogs, that's kind of pushed us where we are now.
Yeah, and at that point, I started buying other breeds. At the time, I just had bullies. That was it. And so, for the last 5 years, I think it's been about 5 since I came out with that concept. I've been buying other breeds, other dogs to work on this, and there are some other people that have helped me in private. I don't think they want me to mention their name. So they've really, I've been lucky enough to have good relationships with people that have really good stuff, and they have been there for me to move forward with it. So it's pretty cool, and I'm sure you've seen some of my posts. I have some puppies on the ground now. I want to make it clear that, the breed does not exist. It's not a breed. We're working on it. This is
step 2 of the process.
This is step 2 of the process. So what ended up happening over the last 5 years is we actually attempted a few breedings, and for whatever reason couldn't get a pregnancy. And this wasn't even just that. Like, I was trying to breed some bullies too, just on a bad run. Wasn't getting any bitches pregnant. And then all of a sudden that changed for whatever reason. Nature decided for things to be okay, and started getting some pregnancies. Finally, I got a pregnancy for the project, but only got 1 puppy out of the deal. There was actually 2 puppies, and one of them ended up dying within the first day. It was just a weak puppy.
And the other one was born naturally.
The other one was
in a truck on the way to the vet.
Yeah, the other one was born naturally, and I don't. It's really not that hard to figure out if someone wants to dig, but I don't talk about the breeds that I've used publicly. I've never done that. There's a lot of chatter about what I'm using, and it's almost always incorrect, which is odd to me.
It's pretty obvious.
I mean, you can see what dogs I have. It's just kind of not that hard to figure out, but I don't publicly mention it. But to put it into perspective, the mother of this puppy was a 50-pound dog, and the father was a 180-pound dog. And she pushed the puppy out naturally just fine, which is pretty cool, I think. So that resulting offspring is the mother of these current puppies. And I've posted pictures of her a few times. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but she's a very interesting looking dog. She's in the right direction. She's definitely not the end goal by any means, but she's pretty good size, you know. She's a 90-pound bitch, so she's kind of right in the middle of the two parents. And really, what we're going for here is a larger dog. I don't think a lot of people understand that. We're going for, you know, I'd like to see bitches at 120 pounds, and I'd like to see males at 150 to 160 pounds, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And that's not easy to do when you're dealing with big breeds and small breeds at the same time. Mm-hmm. You know, the slapping the right traits on the big traits and, you know, picking and choosing what you want. It doesn't always work that way, right? Mm-hmm. Like you don't get to just decide. So, it's been quite a battle. These puppies are really interesting. They have two different sires. I use two different sires, two different breeds. So there's some of these puppies are 75-25 one way, and some of them are 75-25 the other way. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting, and there's a huge size variance. I got little ones and I got big ones in there. Mm-hmm. So it's a trip to look at them.
You can tell who the father is.
You can tell who the dad is. It's pretty obvious of who's who. But this a lot of people have been asking me about them, and I've been talking to some people pretty closely. There's just a few that I'd like to move forward with, and I just don't know what few those are yet. I got to wait for them to grow up, but very interesting puppies. It's working. You know, I can tell what we're doing is working. Mm-hmm. It's moving in the right direction, and that's all I can say. You know, I'm a terrible salesman. I'm a good talker, but I'm a bad salesman. You know, I'm not into false promises and things like that. You know, this is a project, so anybody that's involved, get ready to suffer. You know, be ready to suffer like I have, because I've been suffering. Trust me. Like
it can also be fun too.
It can be a lot of fun.
It's the exploration of it.
Yeah, a lot of fun. It's really interesting. So that's where I'm kind of at now. I only have 6 dogs. I got a couple bullies, and I got a couple Neapolitans. I got a real nice bull terrier over here, and I got my F1 cross, who's the mother of these puppies. Mm-hmm. And it's fun, you know. And I'm just a guy, like I'm just a dreamer guy, artist type guy. I don't have a fancy place with this amazing kennel set up. I'm not a pro, you know. I'm just a guy that's making moves and trying to move forward with it's a dream of mine, you know. Right. I want a dog. I'm not really doing this for the rest of the world. It's a pretty popular idea, and a lot of people like it, and I'm glad. But, you know, once I make something that represents the breed really well, or the concept really well, I should say, I'm going to keep it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to keep it
for personal consumption.
Once I have some more, then I can't keep them all, right? But right now, I'm going to keep it, right? So, anyways, that's kind of the...
But we can't keep all of them.
Yeah.
He's just saying we'll keep the best ones.
Yeah, right. But we actually have a close friend who just called the other day. I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not sure if he wants me to. But he's been breeding dogs for a long time, traveled the world showing dogs. He's very good at it, and he's helping now, which is cool. So there's, in theory, if he follows through, which I think he will, there's going to be a whole new gene pool being worked with in a different country that can be brought together with what's going on over here in my little house over here. So we're excited about that, to have somebody that knows what they're doing involved.
Yeah, it's in South America.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll get some diversity going here pretty quick. So I'm excited. You know, things are going to start moving a little faster now, since I actually have something to move forward with. You know, it's just been a long time just to get to this little spot, but now there's enough sitting there to where the generations are going to start going here a little bit faster. And we did set up an LLC, so anybody that that buys a puppy for breeding purposes, they'll know what the dog is. I'll provide paperwork that states where it's from and what it is.
Mm-hmm. And down to the parents.
Down to the parents and
pictures and everything.
All the stuff. But I'm making everybody sign a non-disclosure agreement where that none of that information is to be posted publicly. It's just to protect people that are involved. Some people don't want people to know that stuff. So it's just for the people that are involved in moving forward with the breeding process right now. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to keep everybody in a good place where they feel comfortable, because other single breeds, some people within those communities may or may not appreciate crossing their breed. Right. Mm-hmm. That's the reason. Yeah, it can be a dramatic situation. And we want to limit the drama. We just want to do what's right in the heart of it. That's the whole intent of that. Yeah. Yeah, I remember I remember posting a picture of this F1 crossover here, the mother of these puppies. I posted her in a working group. And actually, you didn't post her. You sent it to the admin. That's right. I sent her to the admin to see what he would think.
Right.
And then he just posted it. I didn't think he would just do that, but he did. So I shrugged my shoulders. Whatever. He's going to get out someday. 80 shares later. A lot of shares, a lot of chatter, but a lot of. I think one of the it was like a few people on there that considered her to be fat, which I found comical. Yeah, because she's not. She's pretty well muscled, healthy looking dog. But there's variances on what people believe fat is, and what a lot of working dog people keep their dogs really, really lean. Mm-hmm. Where they're you can see every little muscle in their body, and if it's not like that, it's fat. They still eat. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of that's, I guess, just opinion or whatever. And there was a lot of good stuff too. But I think what happens a lot is with that community, and I think that's a good community, by the way, but the question so often is, what's the purpose, right? Mm-hmm. What's the purpose? Well, to me, that's a very interesting question, and I say this with as much political correctness as I can, because let's just be real, for the most part, we don't use dogs for much of anything anymore as human beings besides just having a dog. And there's a really small group of people that actually use dogs for something. That's a small group of people, whether it's compared to the bigger group, the general population of canines. There's a small group of people that use dogs for police work and bite work, or just competitions, or boar hunting, things like that. And all that stuff is great. What I would say, I think it's wonderful, but what I would say about what I'm trying to do is, I'm just trying to, as far as the temperament goes with the concept breed, is I'm just trying to make dogs that have natural guarding tendencies. That's the way I like to word it. Mm-hmm. Am I overly concerned about how good they're going to do in some sort of bite work competition or whatever? Not really. With the breeds I'm using, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make some stuff that does really good with that. But that's not my goal. I'm just going for a temperament that's pretty common within a lot of Mollosso type breeds, and that's that they're really bonded to their family, and they are very suspicious of strangers. There's a weariness in people that they think that don't belong around them. Exactly, and if they're exhibiting that type of temperament, then to me that's successful. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think people might get a little confused sometimes from some images that I've put out there, and they don't all look the same. There's certain images that I think represent the goal better than others, but not everybody knows which one of those images I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we are trying to make a dog that is very functional, that can move very well, that's not a dope. The structure of the dogs being introduced are excellent, and I mean, that's just show quality dogs. Yeah, I mean, we're using good stock. We are. I mean, the dogs that we're using could and working dog people don't care about that. I understand, but they're very conformationally correct
and healthy
and very healthy. So, you know, I'm not. I would like this dog to be able to jump in the back of a truck.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we're going for some size and some bone, but there's plenty of dogs that have that can do those things. You know, so. The other thing is, going back to you asking me about the backlash, I've seen a lot of comments that are, you know, something to the effect of, it looks like an unhealthy mess, you know, or something like that. And that makes me giggle a little bit, because what I'm showing is, I'm showing you a dog that's built very well. You can't deny that. I mean, I know how to make the picture correct. You know, like I'm showing you a dog with good turn to stifle. I'm showing you a dog that's got a good elbow placement and all that stuff. So you can't pick on me about that. So then let's talk about the head, because that's really what the problem is. Yes. And I'm actually showing you a dog with a muzzle that's about half the length of the whole head, from the tip of the nose to the back of the occiput. And that's pretty long, but it doesn't have that visual effect, because the stop's gone, and there's a depth of head from the profile view, so it doesn't make you think of a long snipey muzzle like you would think of with a breed that just has like a narrower head type, like a Doberman or something, but dimensionally the muzzle's quite long, and that's a healthy thing, you know. That's
it's mirrored in nature. Is the idea part of the concept? Mirrored in nature.
It is, and I'm glad you said that, Joe, because basically the head type is modeled after a big cat. Mm-hmm. If you look at a lion or a tiger, they don't have a stop. In fact, a lot of them have a little bit of a curve, similar to a bull terrier, like a mild bull terrier profile. You know, nothing over the top. But big cats, that's how their heads are made. Their muzzle ratio to their head, very similar to what we're trying to do. And so that's my argument with the whole thing. Is really the goal is not that far from. It's not out of the realms of what nature would want. It's a fairly natural thing. It just, for some reason, no one's ever tried to do it before. You're talking about English bulldogs. We're used to seeing those. I love them, but that's crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, like that doesn't even look like a dog anymore. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. There's a lot of things that have to be manipulated and mutated in order to get a dog to look like that, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
there's a big change in life.
There's so many toy breeds out there, you know, pugs. Come on, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's nuts, way more nuts than what I'm trying to do. We're just used to seeing it, and I have no problem with those breeds. I like them, but they're way further past the natural line. You know, nature would never do that. Mm-hmm. Like ever. It's never going to happen. But what I'm doing is a lot closer to what's natural than a lot of breeds that already exist already. That's my argument on that whole thing. And I think people what we're trying to do is it's new looking, you know, it has a new look to it for sure. And so it's just shocking because you haven't seen it before. But if you really think about it, what's so unhealthy about eliminating a bunch of forehead on a dog? Nothing. Mm-hmm. Nothing whatsoever. You have clear nasal passages. You got room for everything to work in there, you know. And you know, we're not going for a curve like a really typey bull terrier. Nothing like that. Mm-hmm. You know, not trying to go. They're same thing. Bull terrier, way more extreme than what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it that way, it is not a crazy idea. It's just a good idea to me. It's just a good idea. It looks good. It's functional. I think looks are really important. I'm an artist. That's the way I look at things. Mm-hmm. I think the visual is very important, amongst other things for sure. But when I look at a dog, it is nice when I want to keep looking at it. When it's attractive, it's a beautiful thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tigers and lions are gorgeous. Who doesn't like those?
Right.
I mean, the only reason people don't like tigers and lions right now is because Tiger King is pissing everybody off. But everybody knows that those creatures are freaking gorgeous, So that's kind of the where we're trying to go with that concept is model that head type after a big cat, length of body. This should be a big dog. It should be a rectangular dog. It should move like a cat, which is just a natural thing. Once you get that much of what's the word I'm looking for? Once you make a dog that rectangular, they just naturally start to get a longer stride like a cat. There's no way around it. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's described in a way that kind of puts things into perspective for people, whoever listens to this,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A visually shocking, healthy animal.
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because it is visually shocking, but only because we haven't seen it yet, right? But if you really think about it, it's not that shocking. It's some people that maybe don't see it the way I do, they think of it as like a beefed up bull terrier or something, and that is not the case. The way that I look at it, and Joe looks at it, is it's actually a very Mollosso type of dog with no stop, with an eliminated stop. We're getting rid of the forehead, we're getting rid of the shorter muzzles, and we're just filling in that stop and putting a little bit of a curve there, just a little bit. And what's so shocking about that? You've already seen it in the big cats. I know a cat's not a dog, but we are talking about a predatory animal that eats meat. And there's some similarities there in build and everything. So there's, if you look at it from the right perspective, it's not a shocking thing. It's just a little bit different, but that's what makes it so cool. That's what makes it neat. So.